Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christi Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast, where we radiate authenticity today with two of my dear girlfriends, Laurel and Judy. Hello, ladies. Welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Hi.
Hi, glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you both. I've never done this before with girlfriends. I've done this with practitioners and authors and things like this. This is the first time I've done this with actual friends, right? So this is really cool. Now, Laurel and I, we have known each other. Oh my God, how long have we known each other, honey?
8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
I think it's been that long. Yeah.
A long time. We go to the same church. We've been kind of in the same circle. And then Judy, we just recently, kind of met. We've been Facebook friends for a long time.
Yes. I saw some comments that you made on a mutual friend's post, and I felt like I desperately needed to know you. Like, you have an energy that really resonated with me. And I just wanted to be your friend immediately.
Thank you. Same.
Was it like 6 months, 8 months ago, something like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I knew we would be friends. So.
Oh, it was the first, you were at a metaphysical thing at the casino. And I had just got a bunch of new crystals in the mail, and I was like, oh, I need to know her right away.
That is true, because you're also, we're all three woo-woo.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, please. Yes.
We're on the woo-woo train, of course. And I had introduced the two of you, a few weeks ago. Just I thought you should know each other. You have very similar journeys.
We haven't really talked privately or anything like that. It's been a real busy few weeks, but yes, I'm very, very grateful to know, especially sort of newer trans people or who are sort of just getting into it as well.
Right.
It's hard. It's a really lonely, hard path.
I think everybody needs to understand that. This road to authenticity is hard won, and you would not go through all of these trials and tribulations if it weren't that important.
I reached a point where I felt like it was mandatory for me to remain alive. I fought it from about 1987. And I honestly I've told everyone that I've ever seriously dated about it since 1994 or 95. But at that point, I was already masking so heavily with substance abuse that I was terrified to pursue anything. And of course, this was in the mid 90s. I don't think I even heard the word transgender until 2005 or 2006. The support infrastructure wasn't there. The language wasn't really commonly used. And I knew that I felt like I was wrong. But I also, it was important enough to me that I felt like people I was dating seriously needed to know about it. But I wasn't pursuing it. And it took a long time for me to feel comfortable doing that.
Oh, wow. Now, Laurel, your story is a bit different.
Yeah. I've known since I was a kid, since about the age of 5, and tried to confront that at the time. And for some, I really don't know what told me. I think it was my mother, actually, that told me I had to keep a secret who I was. It just would not go over well at home. And I don't remember that. I just have that feeling. One of the things I wanted to get out of QHHT was, why the heck is this happening to me? Which I think is fairly common for all of us.
And you got some answers about that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
And Laurel, you're a bit older than Judy. And, this was at a time when there weren't many models. We didn't really know anybody.
Totally devoid.
Even when I was little, there weren't any models. We were just a punchline on police academy movies, basically.
Yeah. It was always a joke.
Always.
It was always a joke, and a dark joke at that.
Yes. It still kind of is. It's funny now because I struggle with whether it was better to be a punchline of a dark joke or to now be supremely hated by half of the country. You know what I mean? It almost makes you wonder, like, which thing was the worst thing. But I mean, obviously, I would never put it back in the box. So,
This is an important question then, I think that I have is like, what was the tipping point for each of you? When did you decide enough is enough? I've got to be authentic and I've got to be myself.
I retired in 2015. And up until that point, I'd been doing a pretty good job of covering it up for myself. I had a beard and short hair and all that crap.
me too.
And retirement gave me much more time to free myself. I felt like I'd put it off all my life. And at that point, well, what's the point? What's the point of changing now?
Right.
I had some issues with working around the house and actually doing renovations with my son, and wondered what the heck I was doing. I was just like, this is not right. I just felt like I had to do something. And I decided to tell my wife. We were married for 42 years all told. And at that point, I had the option of losing her. I thought that was one of the possible outcomes. It took her about 5 minutes, and she said, "Okay, what are we going to do?"
Oh,
Yeah,
I love to
I
hear
was
it.
so in love with her. I was so in love with her. I didn't want to lose her.
Right.
Turned out she didn't want to lose me either. She didn't want me to go the full way. She didn't want me to actually become a woman. She didn't
Yeah.
want to be around for that. She could help me and support me, but she didn't want to see me go on hormones.
Mm,
And the rationale that she had was because it might change the way I feel about her. Psychologically, a change of hormones might change who I was, but I'd never had any interest in men at all. So it didn't make sense to me. You said, what was the actual tipping point though for coming out? COVID was great. We were sequestered, and I could shave off the beard, and I could just say, hey, I've got to do this, and let my hair grow and all that. And nobody would know, I mean,
right.
the close friends, they would know, but nobody publicly knew. I did not appear as a woman publicly until after I decided to come out publicly. And that was the tipping point for that was watching the legislature in Missouri go crazy and doing what they were trying to do to prevent any kind of care for kids who were like me at one time and anyone else. It affected me too. I figured I just had to stand up.
When did you start accepting use of the word trans about yourself, like in your head?
Oh, wow.
I only asked that because for me, I've known I was trans forever, but it was only a few years ago that I started letting myself think about myself that way.
Oh,
Good.
I wasn't sure at first. I played around with it. When I was a kid, it was transvestite, the only word in use,
Yeah.
or transsexual. But I thought that's what I was, and I couldn't understand that. I read every book I could find about trans people from a psychological standpoint.
Right.
Just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Sure.
I didn't have the guts.
No, it's a lot of guts.
Yeah. It just hit me when the trans month of visibility last year in 22, I guess, came out. That's when I just said, I can't take it anymore. Hey, I'm going to come out publicly.
And by this time, Deb had passed, right?
No, she had about 2 months left. And that was one of the things, my wife had a debilitating illness that was going to be terminal. We knew that,
Right.
but I didn't want to complicate things. Our lives were so screwed up because of that. I didn't want to complicate things for myself and for other people, trying to think, what the heck's going on with her or him? So I wanted to put it off until after she was gone, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And she said, okay. She stood by me through the whole thing.
That period, right, when you're sort of like rocketing toward the tipping point, it's really, the feelings are very desperate.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're so close.
Yeah.
It's like you can see it, the life that you have sort of carved out for yourself. It's just right over the hill, but you're not quite there. And so, like, every little bump in the road feels so severe.
Yeah.
You feel like you should be able to do it by then. It's hard.
Everything is ready by then. but there's something that's not quite in place yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Judy, what was the tipping point for you?
In a way, Laurel and I's stories are pretty similar in that I'm also married to a woman. I do like men also, but I've been with Jess for a long time. But I told her on maybe our second or third date that I was a trans person, that I identified as a transgender woman. But at that time, I was heavily masking with drugs and alcohol. And I think she just thought that I was a strange person and she wasn't sure how seriously she needed to take it. She works in mental health, and I think she probably thought that I just had some substance abuse issues and depression and anxiety issues that were manifesting in that way. But over time, it got to the point where I couldn't bring myself to leave the house anymore. We had a baby, and I was a construction plumber, like plumbing contractor. So I did very difficult, physically laborious work. And I was so frustrated with it. But then I also struggle with this idea that it's not feminine to do that kind of work, because I do know women who do that kind of work. It's complicated. But it eventually got to the point where I was taking care of 6-month-old baby all day, and I was in the house by myself all the time. And I felt like it was necessary, but I wasn't ready. And so I was drinking very heavily and using drugs very heavily. And I developed such severe anxiety about even looking out the window and being perceived by anybody out there. And we had been looking for houses for my daughter Lydia's eventual school district. And I didn't know this at the time, but what I know now is that Jess wanted to get me out of the city. She felt like, knowing all of the people who were encouraging of my substance abuse and drug dealers, she thought getting me away from those people might make it a practical barrier to me continuing to act that way. And at the time, we only had one functional car. So she did everything that it took to get us this house in Blue Springs, where we've been for the last 7 years. And when we got here, I was away from everyone I knew, and I was still caring for a baby, and I had no way to get anywhere. And I was forced to deal with myself. And so I decided to use the momentum of that move, because it just felt so powerful. Like, it felt that I realized I could trust Jess, basically. And I realized I had also never trusted anyone before. And so whenever that happened, it changed everything. And I decided to use that momentum to quit all drug use, quit all drinking, get into therapy, like figure out what needed to happen so that I could be happy. And I knew my goal was to come to terms with whether I was needing to live as a woman or not. And then if that was a thing that needed to happen, to get to it. Because after we moved here and I was sitting around all the time, I was constantly stricken. I have some health problems. I have some cervical spine damage. I have nerve damage in both of my arms and one of my legs. You start having chronic health problems like that. And I was constantly stricken with this idea that I could die having never lived my life for 5 minutes. And it just ruminated that way all day and all night. And I couldn't do it anymore. And so my wife is exceedingly practical. She is a problem solver. And so we took it. I was writing, journaling every day. I have like 7 years, thousands of journal entries. It's very difficult for me to go back and read now, because I was really fighting with myself. And some of it's very hard to read. But it eventually got to the point where I had a really good therapist. Like, we tried me just presenting femme at home before our daughter knew. And then we tried like going tanning and going to get manicures together, like all these, these little baby steps that weren't, the whole transition, to see if that would be enough. And over time, it proved to not be. And I started talking to my sister and some close friends about it. And eventually, I just had enough courage to say, this has to happen. And so I started seeing a gender issues therapist who's amazing, Dr. Christina McDowell. I think she lives in California now. at my very last appointment, she said, there's nothing else that I can do for you. She was like, you know what you need to do. And all you need to do is summon the guts to do it. And I think that you will have a happy life. And so I went home and I was trying to tell Jess that I felt like it was time. And I was really struggling to get the words out. And I'll never forget, she was like, I'm going to stop you right there. She goes, no, there is no walking away. No one is leaving. She was like, I will not walk away from you if you become a woman. And so from then it was just on. And so it was like my main focus, aside from taking care of the animals and my kid and like keeping the house in order and everything running, because I was still working as a plumber at that time too. Oh yeah, I had gone back to it. And whenever she got her funding for her department at the hospital, she called me and was like, okay, well, I'm funded. Are you ready to be a housewife? And I was like, oh my, are you kidding? And she was like, nope, we're doing it. This is when it starts. Do it. So I called right away, put my 2 weeks in, and started this journey. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. But that was the tipping point, really. Like, I would say whenever she told me that she for sure wouldn't walk away, I'd say that was when it started to kick in earnest.
Well,
Sorry, I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
please, your story is important.
I'm a rambler.
Wouldn't have you any other way.
I don't know. I think we're both tearing up listening to you.
I know. I'm sitting here bawling.
It's hard. It's a very hard thing. And the hardest part is that I struggle. I had arranged my life in such a way that I would always take the easy path. Like I would always do whatever was the easiest so that I could go play music with my friends or spend time with girlfriends or boyfriend, whomever, just whatever was not actually confronting my inner self. And I don't think I felt my real feelings from 1995 until 2009. And that was only for a minute because, I got attacked. I forgot that part. I tried to come out in earnest in 2009, but the cards were not lined up properly. I had no money, I had no job. I just got out of an abusive relationship. And I was just trying to come out of spite more than anything. Like I was ragey. And I just was like, this is not the life I'm supposed to have. And I tried to come out and I got sexually assaulted right away. And then I got attacked by 3 military guys 2 weeks after that. And so I just started drinking again immediately, put it all back in the box and was like, okay, I'm not going to be trans anymore. Like, this is not good. I have had self-confidence issues for a very long time. My childhood was weird. And my mom really had an exceedingly difficult childhood. And because of that, she has some problems. And so it's very difficult for me to believe in myself and think that what I'm thinking is the right answer, or I'm not putting people out, not causing problems. Because I tend to think that people who are around me are doing me this huge favor, just letting me be around. And so anything extra that I ask of people, I always fight with myself about it. And so it like every day when you're trans, every day you have to wake up and you have to summon the juice to do the harder thing. Like you have to believe your own hype enough that you willingly walk a path that is not the harder path, but the much harder path. And if you can't summon that courage and that belief in yourself, it's going to be horrible. And so you really have to do that. And that's hard.
I see both of you and anybody else who decides to walk a path that is extremely difficult, but you can't not do it.
If I could do anything else, I would do it.
Of course you would. It's painful.
It's painful.
I see both of you doing this, and that is the most courageous thing I can ever think of.
Thank you.
It's like both of you have so much courage. I mean, Laura, is there anything that you would add from your own experience about your hardships and your struggles in this?
Well, listening to Judy about, just getting up every day. I wake up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom, and there's a mirror in there, and I take a look, and it's like, oh, Yeah, it's working, or I'm not having a good night. It just depends.
Well, the highs are definitely there too. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
What are some of the high highs, ladies? The high highs. What feels wonderful about being authentic and being you?
If I spend a whole day where I haven't been around anyone who ever knew me as a boy. You know what I mean? And that's why that's the real reason why I don't like to leave Blue Springs very much and go do things in the city or whatever. A lot of it is because everyone that I will run into there had a huge amount of years experience with me as a man. And no matter how hard they all try, and they do try very hard, but it's not possible. And I'm not one of the trans people that tries to act like that person is dead and that life didn't mean anything. Like I don't feel that way at all. But it is much nicer when I wake up and from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, my womanhood was never called into question. Like that is a really
Past.
wonderful feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Did you mention the word pass,
Yeah.
Christine? Yeah, yeah. I think that was always my goal, just to be able to pass so that I don't get stares or get misgendered or attacked or whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to blend in, want to fit in.
Now, Laurel, your story is a little bit different. I mean, you live in the same neighborhood that you did with Deb. You go to the same church. You have
Yeah.
the same friends.
Friends and family have all been tremendously supportive.
That's so awesome.
It really, the church was just, oh my God.
Oh, the church is the best.
Yeah, they're just wonderful.
Unity Temple on the Plaza. I want to put a shout out and
Yeah.
a plug for Unity Temple on the Plaza. So welcoming.
Deb passed a little over a year ago. And going to the same church and knowing some of the same people changed, because the people that she knew as a woman didn't know me as a woman. They knew me as Deb's husband.
Right.
And when that changed, it was like I found out stuff about her that made me love her all the more.
We
There were
Beautiful.
tell
cool
things to our
things
girlfriends that we don't
that I
tell to
found.
our guy
Yeah,
friends.
exactly,
Beautiful.
exactly. They open up to me now, where before they just like, oh, he's a guy, and now it's like, wow, I'm part of the club, and
That
that's
is really
I
lovely.
really like that.
Yeah.
That
Judy, I
feel-
have to say, I've really only, I mean, I think we were Facebook friends before, in the before times. We talked about that. Since you have been authentically you and been much happier and been who you're supposed to be and who you wanted to be, that we've really become friends.
I would say that I think maybe I kind of avoided friendships with women for a long time because I was worried how that would seem. Even though I have a lot of friends who have known that I'm trans and sort of like sexually flexible and like all this other stuff for years, like 15, 17 years. But I think they all were respectful enough of our friendship and whatever to keep that secret largely. And I was a dater, like I dated a lot of ladies. A lot of that I think had to do with masking and just trying to be this invented character. And the good thing about that is I doing plumbing, I was in different people's houses all the time. And they didn't know me. And so I could be anything to them. And so it was kind of like a safe space where they could see me. I had a huge beard, same as Laurel was saying. And I could be this masculine person, and they had no history of me. The friendships with women are I don't even have words for it, honestly. Like as an adult woman, having friendships with women is like it's the absolute best. It's the very best. I felt like I was missing it for my entire life, and to now have access to that is another high, I would say. The highest.
Laurel, I
I,
see you
I agree.
nodding and
I
smiling.
agree. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, having female friends is wonderful.
Awesome. I bet the friends who knew your wife too, I bet it gives them some comfort being able to now share the secrets with you that they would have shared with her. You know what I mean? Like it's probably
Yeah.
really wonderful for you guys as friends too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? That people would open up a little bit more too. It's just beautiful how you both have completely embraced this and embracing what it means to be a woman rather than what it feels like. I mean, like it's like the long history of feminism. So, Laurel, you come from a little bit different background around that, the Gloria Steinem, the Ms. Magazine, like that. Judy, you're reading more of the newer studies on feminism and what it means to be, like in women's studies. So, can either of you talk about that, like what you've discovered about women on this journey? The Women in Podcasting Awards are an international People's Choice style of awards event, and we would love your vote. I'm Christi Clemens Hoffman, the host of this podcast you're listening to right now, and I'm up in 3 categories. First, the Health, Wellness, and Fitness podcast for the Radiate Wellness podcast, what you're listening to now. Also, Faith-Based podcast for Real Life Angel Encounters podcast. Also, as favorite expert guest. Again, that's me, Christi Clemens Hoffman. I would love your vote. Voting is open until October 1st. Please go to womeninpodcasting.net/vote to cast your vote. And thank you. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to ask you a few simple favors. First of all, please rate, review, and share this podcast wherever you're listening. It sounds like a simple little thing, and it is, but it has a huge impact for us because it helps other people find us in the podcasting algorithms. I don't know how it works, but I do know that it helps a lot. Next, if you would subscribe or follow wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you're listening, just hit subscribe or follow, and that helps you and it helps us. It helps you because then you receive notifications when we have a new episode that's out. It helps us because, again, algorithm magic, I don't know what happens, but it helps. And then finally, you can support our podcast in a tangible way by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast and then click on support the show. Now, we have a new feature too. We are now on Patreon. You can find us on Patreon. You can also find the link to Patreon when you go to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast. So on Patreon for $3 a month or $5 a month, you can support your metaphysical and spiritual growth. You can learn about upcoming guests, and you can get early and ad-free versions of the shows. So please support us. This podcast is free for you to listen, but we have costs, and quite frankly, they come out of my pocket. So if you like this content, if you get a lot out of it, please see what you can do to give back. Thank you so much.
I do have one thing I could say, and it's kind of a cop out, but I feel like it relates enough. I think that the trans woman and the cis woman experience is extremely different. And I know that we're supposed to say trans women are literally women. And I know that that's been the tagline for the activist set, but I just don't think that's true. Like, we can't have babies. And in the Midwest where we live, especially, you're just as likely to get attacked by a woman as you are to get attacked by a man. But where we overlap, I think, is under misogyny. And I think in that's where we are extremely similar. And weirdly, I was ready for transphobia. Like, when I decided to come out, I had steeled myself against the kinds of people who engage in active transphobia and that type of thing. And I felt like I was prepared. Like, it's a certain kind of person. They typically have a political agenda. They're obviously doing it on purpose. And so I can usually see it coming. You know what I mean? What I was not ready for was the true weight of misogyny. Like, I was not prepared to walk out of the house and have people treat me poorly, not because I am a trans woman, but because I am any woman. And there are people who will be like, oh, you say that you're a woman, then I'll just treat you how I treat women, AKA very bad. And so, like, while transphobia is typically a deliberate behavior by like a politically oriented person, misogyny is baked into every function. Anything that you have to do has racism and misogyny built into it. So, like, you can't go to the bank, you can't go to the grocery store. I mean, and people are doing misogynistic things without even knowing they're doing it because it's built into there. I was
Yeah.
not ready for that. That hit very hard. And that is the one thing I feel like I definitely share with women in general. And it is very challenging. It's heavy.
Yeah, I think our society is just, yeah, you said it's baked in, for thousands of years, it's been like this.
It has.
At one time, there was a lot of goddess worship and the men took it away.
Not only that, but also then destroyed the history too.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But everything about the society has all of that baked in.
It
As
does.
you put it, the women don't see it. A lot of women don't see it until you find someone who's been a little educated in terms of the feminism, and then they start to see it. But I mean, haven't you seen it as you were growing up? Didn't you see it then? I mean, you knew early on,
Of course.
and didn't you know that women were being treated differently?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just not prepared for
yeah,
what it would feel like.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I
This
agree.
is interesting, both of your perspectives, because growing up in it, it's like asking what a fish thinks of water,
Right?
right? Because I looked at it from the inside out rather than observing this behavior directed toward any woman. So it's a little bit different. And
Yeah,
it's just within, gosh, Oliver, well, maybe Judy, you're quite a bit younger than me, but within my lifetime, like 1972, women got to get bank accounts in their own name.
Right.
And I mean, just things like that. In 1972, Switzerland gave women the right to vote. 1972, the most democratic country in the world. They didn't get to vote until 1972, right? So, I mean, this stuff is hard baked, it's wired into us.
It is.
Is there anything surprising about how it feels to be a woman? Like, Judy, I noticed you like were making some gestures with your hands and everything that seemed a little bit, like so easy with the feminism. Either of you have any other surprises for how this shows up?
No, I planned all this stuff over like 30 years. You know what I mean? Like everything about I'm fashion obsessed. I'm a part-time fashion writer. I have been planning looks since I was a little kid. The only thing changed, like slight modifications for trends over time. I try to do a pretty classic type of vibe most of the time. And a lot of this stuff is not really very different from how I've ever been. I think I'm a lot freer with it. This was all in here this whole time. It is a lot easier. Although I do feel weird, like even in this situation right now, like I really don't go full on. Like I still am restraining it to some degree. Honestly, like whenever Jess and I are alone in our bedroom and the day is over and we're just chatting, that's probably the only time that I don't feel suppressed in some way, at least just like a little bit, but that little bit counts.
Of course it does.
So, like when I go to Lydia's school or whatever, which even though they've been super awesome, and Blue Springs as a town has been shockingly supportive. Like
Who knew?
I did not
yeah,
anticipate that at all. I've had no trouble. But even so, when I go up there, especially if like her principal is a man, other dads and stuff like that, like I feel like, what can they handle? Like, how much Judy are they ready to take on? You know what I mean? Because I'm a lot. Like, there's no two ways about that. But it's just kind of like, how much can this Midwestern man accept of this right now? And so, I do dumb it down quite a lot. But I think that has more to do with me just being a lot than it has to do with me being a trans woman. Like, I've always metered myself out to people out of
Fair.
worry that they would be like,
you're talking about fashion, Judy, and when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a fashion designer,
me
but
too.
it had to be kept quiet.
Yeah,
Like
it's
nobody else
terrible.
could know because at the time, and maybe even still, the general supposition was that male designers are gay.
Yeah.
And I did not want anyone to think I was gay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I can't imagine. They'll just beat
And,
your head in.
it's hard being stuck in a label. Even the trans, it's just a label.
I don't fit into some parts of it. So
Yeah, I mean, my version of being a woman is pretty much internal. I don't wear a lot of stuff that I might like to wear, but I just like to try it on and that's enough. I don't need to go out in public and stuff like that. But I just don't do makeup. I don't know how to walk. I don't know anything about being a woman except how I feel inside.
right.
For me, that's really it.
Well, that's perfectly valid also. You know what I mean? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to is this is your world that you live in. You know, you're manifesting the situation around you. You should do what makes you feel right
Yeah.
and comfortable.
The whole
Great.
point of authenticity.
Yeah. I
Nobody
do
has
want to say though that that's like I at one point in time, I for years and years of my childhood, I tried to make girl clothes for myself out of just like scraps of stuff and like scarves that were or
Oh,
like clothes that my sister's 12 years older than me. And what kind of kicked this whole thing off is I was home alone when I was like 7 years old, back when that would still happen. And I was exploring the basement and I came across a garbage bag full of my sister's childhood clothes. And she's 12 years older than me. So she was already out of the house by then. And I couldn't understand. I felt like a joke was being played on me. Like I was like, this is this actually supposed to be mine? You know, because there was nobody there to ask. And I just didn't know. But from that point on, I started making clothes for myself in secret. And one day I came into my room after school and they were all out, all at the same time. And I angrily put them all away back where they're the hiding places or whatever. And you want to know something? My parents never said a word about it either.
Oh my goodness.
wow.
But
Wow.
I knew that it was unacceptable to them by that. And so, yes, I wanted to be a fashion designer also for a
Well,
long
now
time.
you're a fashion writer, which I think is like one of the coolest things ever, that you get like paid to shop and write reviews.
Yeah, I mean, it's commercial. You know, it's not like a creative endeavor, but it's great. That came along right around the time that I was publicly coming out. So the timing of it was amazing. And I feel like it's hard to not feel like I'm doing a lot of this with my mind just because, you know, Jess is extremely powerful. Together, we have an undeniable connection. And it's almost like we live kind of a charmed life. It's not. It's not almost. It is that we live a charmed life.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, and because we engage in sort of ritualistic magic sometimes, you know, things like that, it winds up feeling like I'm just willing this into existence. And I'm still not convinced that I'm not, to be honest with you.
Does it
Um,
matter?
no, it doesn't matter in the least. Yeah, I don't think I inhabit my own world and I'm very grateful to do it. It sounds like Laurel's kind of in the same boat here. Like I have no interest in occupying anything other than my life. And I don't want to waste a second.
It's occurred to me that, I know I'm not, when we were talking about being a trans woman before, I know I'm not a woman. I mean, some people say that you are, but I know I'm not. And there's nothing I can do to actually become a woman. I can't go through childbirth. I don't go through menses. I'm not going to go through, well, maybe I did go through menopause. I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
It happens.
Sorry.
It happens to me all the time.
I think your point is very well taken, Laurel. You have no mystery as to who you really are and no pretenses of who you really are either. You're just 1000% authentic.
I got it. I don't see myself as a complete woman. What I do see is a better me.
Beautiful.
That's what it boils down to. I'm a better me.
That's gorgeous.
Oh man, that is wonderful. I love that. Oh, better you.
And I see it every day. I mean, it's just every day it gets better.
Can't really ask for too much more than that, really.
Oh, no.
No, that's wonderful.
All right, I think I have a final question for both of you. Is there anything you haven't done to be more authentic that you feel you still need to or want to do?
Well, one of the things that people always feel compelled to ask when they find out you're trans is, well, did you get the surgery? They always want to know. And I mean, what the hell? Why is why,
Business.
what is business is it of theirs?
Now,
But that's
Laurel,
always out there.
You did change your driver's license, right?
I've changed my name legally, yeah. And
I haven't done that yet, but I would like to.
the driver's license still has an M on it. And
Yeah.
after I changed my name, they said, okay, we'll give you a new license. And they used the same old picture from 2 years before. They wouldn't even
Oh,
take a new picture of me.
come on.
At least I had long hair. It was okay. But yeah, I need to get some medical recommendations, and then I can get the gender changed on the license.
Judy, anything that you would do to be more authentically you?
I'm trying to think of anything, but I don't think so. Like I have considered, like I'm on hormones and I'm pretty satisfied with the progress that I've seen from that. And so I'll continue that. And I never wanted to get surgery because I was concerned. For the longest time, there was a big percentage chance that you would wind up non-orgasmic.
Oh, not
Uh,
fun.
it was high. It
That's
was a
no
high
fun.
percentage chance that you would go through the surgery and you would never be able to have an orgasm again. And that is not an option. I'm not willing to do that. So, but the technology has improved by leaps and bounds over the last couple years, and it's to the point now where they can make all of the parts that are self-functioning almost, which that was not a thing for a really long time. And so I wouldn't mind looking into that if I could be convinced that the technology was safe and good. But at the same time, I don't really have a huge problem with my anatomy as it is. I would like for the lasers that I've been using on my face and neck to be functional so that I wouldn't have to shave twice a day and mangle my skin. There's a plan and a path, and I'm already on it. And I'm very confident that with the support of my wonderful family and my friends, that I will get to where I want to be. But right now, it's not really a destination oriented situation. Like I'm just enjoying every day. I'm a housewife and a mom and a writer. It's everything I ever wanted.
Both of you are just such inspirations to me just for living your most authentic lives. I know how hard it is to be authentic, and I don't even do a half the crap that you guys do. But just to be own yourself, own your feelings, own how you feel about things, show up as you really feel. It's hard every day.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a real struggle. Like I definitely struggle. And some of those nights I walk past the mirror and it's a problem. And I don't know that that ever goes away. But the one thing I would like to leave everyone with is that coming into this election and coming into the way things are possibly going to play out, if you're watching this and you are a trans person, you need to toughen up. You need to be less concerned with language use. You need to be less concerned with a lot of the social aspects of these problems for the time being, because if you do not toughen up, you are not going to make it. It has taken me, I'm an extremely gentle person. I always have been. I cry at the drop of a hat, as is obvious. And it has taken basically the love of my child is what motivated me to be able to withstand a lot more than I would have ever been able to in my life. But I feel like there'll be plenty of time for the silliness and like the more I don't know. Probably going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but just we need to toughen up so that women and people of color and disabled people and all of these other groups of people that are going through the same type of thing that we're struggling with right now. We need to be able to help them. And to do that, we need to be functional people. And so that would be my one word of advice. Get tough somehow, because we got to fight ahead of us.
Amen, sister. Amen. Laurel, do you have any words of advice? Any parting thoughts?
Nope, I think you got it all out of me.
I truly just admire and adore both of you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for being my friends.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining me today. I
I still have some rompers for you, by the way.
Yes, you do, girl. I cannot wait. Wait for my rompers.
I'll get them to you soon. Oh wait, are you going to be at the thing Wednesday?
I am. Yeah, I'm going to be reading poetry Wednesday night.
I'm coming this week.
Awesome. Laurel, you too. Come down and hear me read some poetry.
Okay, I
Everybody
didn't know
wants
you were
to hear
gonna do it. I went the last time.
I will get you some information. And to anybody who's listening to this show, I would like to invite you, please, to please vote for me, Radiate Wellness Podcast and Real Life Angel Encounters Podcast, which is my other show, and me as a best guest expert in Women in Podcasting Awards.
Cool.
So the link will be in the show notes. All right, my dear, dear friends, I'm looking forward to our next chapters together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Don't know what to watch next? Decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win-win, right?